Welcome back to Civil Defiance. Tonight we dismantle one of the most protected pillars of the establishment, the social safety net. You are told it's a moral imperative, a measure of a decent society. I call it a brilliantly engineered political machine designed to breed and maintain dependency. This isn't charity. It's a sophisticated system of control that ensures the Uni-Party, the coalesced establishment of perpetual power, always has a predictable captive voting base and a stable low-wage labor pool. If the goal were truly to eradicate poverty, why, after trillions of dollars and decades of implementation, does the problem persist? The persistence of poverty is not a failure of effort, it is a success of design. The system creates just enough aid to keep people alive and working, but not enough to make them free and dissenting. To argue this incendiary point, I have two guests who view this system not as a failure of benevolence, but as a deliberate act of power. Dr. Elara Shaw, political scientist specializing in state dependencies, and Kai Harper, a former social worker with firsthand knowledge of the system's operational cruelty. Dr. Shaw, let's start with the central accusation. You claim the Uni-Party needs poverty to exist. Explain the political market logic of maintaining human suffering.
The logic is chillingly simple, Otto, and it spans the political spectrum. The Uni-Party is primarily concerned with structural preservation. A large, reliant, lower economic class serves three functions. First, guaranteed voting bloc. This class, focused entirely on maintaining subsistence, will vote defensively for whichever political faction promises to keep the aid flowing. Their vote is transactional and predictable, eliminating the chaos of independent thought.
Predictability.
The Democratic side promises the funding. The Republican side promises the moral indignation that keeps their base energized against the cost. Both sides secure votes by maintaining the underlying need. Second, labor market subsidization. The safety net acts as a subsidy for massive corporations, allowing them to pay sub-living wages.
Right.
The state tops up the income with food stamps and housing aid, ensuring corporate profits remain high while the worker remains poor. This arrangement is sacred to the corporate wing of the Uni-Party. Third, bureaucratic power. The administration of aid creates millions of government jobs, contracts, and regulatory oversight positions. The bureaucracy itself is a massive political patronage machine. Ending poverty would dissolve this entire power structure. The Uni-Party is fighting to preserve the process, not the people.
Kai, you are a cog in this machine. Dr. Shaw describes the top-down malice. I want to know about the street-level cruelty. I say the bureaucracy is merely inefficient, bloated, slow, but well-intentioned. You argue it's intentionally hostile. What did you see that convinced you the complexity was by design?
I saw a system where caseworkers were judged not on client outcomes, but on client compliance. The complexity isn't incompetence. It's a screening mechanism designed to favor the most desperate, while punishing any display of self-sufficiency or ambition. The endless forms, the arbitrary deadlines, the requirement to prove destitution weekly, it's all psychological warfare.
I see.
The system demands that recipients expend all their available mental and emotional resources simply navigating the bureaucracy. This ensures they have nothing left for education, organization, or political dissent. The process is designed to induce learned helplessness. We force them into a position where they must constantly beg, prove their worthlessness, and submit to invasive scrutiny. This psychological subjugation is the hidden cost of the safety net. It breeds compliance and ensures that the recipients, once free, will be grateful for any job, no matter how exploitative. The Uni-Party wants them focused on the next form, not the next revolution.
Dr. Shaw, your claim is that the structural consensus, the defense of the bureaucratic process itself, is the defining feature of the Uni-Party. Break down how they collaborate to protect this dependency model. Give me the specifics of the political trade-off.
The collaboration is elegant. The nominal liberal wing ensures the funding tap remains open, claiming moral superiority. This funding, however, is channeled exclusively through the labyrinthine state agencies. The nominal conservative wing insists on punitive accountability measures, drug tests, work requirements, time limits, which guarantee the red tape remains thick and the path to independence remains a sheer cliff face.
A perfect symbiosis.
The liberal side gets to hire the social workers. The conservative side gets to shame the recipients. The result is that the poor remain dependent, trapped between two political forces who pretend to fight over them while both profit from their bondage. That mutual structural preservation is the very definition of the Uni-Party at work. They fight over the rhetoric, Otto, but they protect the chains.
Let's talk about the two most effective tools of control. First, the stigma, the constant media-driven narrative of the welfare queen or the lazy dependent. Dr. Shaw, is this moralizing simply cheap political theater, or is it essential to the Uni-Party's financial architecture?
It is absolutely essential, Otto. The stigma is the Uni-Party's firewall against systemic accountability. By constantly portraying the poor as morally defective, the establishment shifts the blame for poverty away from destructive economic policies, like deindustrialization, unchecked corporate lobbying, and financial deregulation, and places it squarely on the shoulders of the victim.
Classic misdirection.
The middle and working classes are encouraged to direct their resentment downward at the poor, rather than upward at the elite who designed the system. This prevents the formation of a cross-class political coalition that could demand structural change. The stigma is the grease that allows the Uni-Party to maintain a rigged economic game. If the middle class ever saw the poor as fellow victims of a corporate political oligarchy, the entire system would shatter.
Kai, you lived and worked inside the bureaucracy that enforced this stigma. Describe how the benefit cliff, the perverse policy where gaining a small raise makes you financially worse off, is psychologically wielded as a weapon of deterrence.
The benefit cliff is the ultimate emotional handcuff. I watched countless clients, often single mothers, experience agonizing paralysis when faced with a promotion. They weren't lazy, they were calculating the real-world cost of optimism. A $200 monthly raise meant losing $800 in health care, food, and childcare subsidies. The system was actively punishing them for trying to achieve independence.
A perverse incentive structure.
This isn't a glitch. It's a structural mandate for perpetual near poverty. The cliff guarantees that the recipient internalizes the following message: ambition is dangerous. Stability is found only in subservience to the state. The moment a recipient tries to break out, the system applies maximum punitive force, driving them back into the compliant, low-wage pool. The cliff preserves the labor market's low wages by making mobility a financial death sentence.
If the goal is truly to maximize control, why don't they just eliminate all paths to self-sufficiency? Why maintain this facade of assistance at all, Dr. Shaw? Why not just let them starve and rely solely on private charity?
Because that would invite revolution, Otto. The aid must be sufficient to prevent mass civil unrest and maintain social order. The Uni-Party is not interested in chaos. They are interested in stable control. The safety net is a pressure release valve. It gives just enough subsistence to redirect the fight from the streets to the bureaucratic office.
Managed dissent.
The beauty of the current system is that it achieves control without appearing authoritarian. It co opts the language of compassion to enforce the agenda of corporate power. The system is perfectly optimized for the political goal, managing the human capital of the poor without granting them economic freedom. The state purchases their compliance with minimal investment, a trade off the Uni-Party considers highly profitable.
And Kai, what is the impact on the children? Are they being raised to view the world as a place of opportunity or as a terrifying bureaucratic maze they must spend their lives navigating?
They are being raised in an environment of institutional fatalism. They learn that the most powerful force in their life isn't work ethic or education, but the arbitrary whim of the caseworker or the unforgiving deadline of the form. They learn that survival is about appeasing the institution, not about independent striving. This ensures the dependency is generational. These children grow up knowing how to navigate the bureaucratic maze. They become the next generation of compliant, dependent subjects ready to vote defensively to keep the system, flawed as it is, from collapsing and removing their only source of security. It's a pipeline of compliance, maintained by the Uni-Party.
Let's move to the non-governmental collaborators, the charity industrial complex, the multi-billion-dollar ecosystem of nonprofits, faith-based organizations, and community foundations. Kai, you mentioned they are integral to the weapon. How does a local food bank or shelter, ostensibly run by good people, become a tool of the Uni-Party?
Because they provide the moral camouflage, Otto. When the government fails, as it is designed to, the charities step in to manage the most visible, acute suffering. This allows the government and the Uni-Party to shrug and say, "We have a compassionate society, see? Private charity is picking up the slack." The charity complex ensures the crisis is never severe enough to generate political revolution. They are the Uni-Party's safety valve for rage.
The acceptable face of control.
Furthermore, large charities often receive massive government grants, making them politically subservient to the same bureaucracy they are ostensibly correcting. Their survival depends on the perpetuation of the problem. No poverty, no massive charity fundraising, no crisis, no massive executive salaries. They are incentivized to maintain the status quo and manage the optics of suffering without ever demanding the structural changes that would render them obsolete. They are partners in the management of dependency.
Dr. Shaw, elaborate on the political necessity of fragmentation. Why is it crucial that aid is distributed across 50 different agencies with 50 different applications rather than one simple, efficient mechanism?
The fragmentation is the Uni-Party's best defense against organized resistance. If aid were centralized and efficient, recipients would have the time and clarity to see their shared plight and organize politically. Fragmentation ensures that the individual recipient's life is a constant, exhausting battle against disparate rules and endless forms. They are running between the Housing Authority, the Food Aid Office, the Job Training Center, and the Energy Assistance Program. Their entire existence is atomized.
Divide and conquer?
They cannot unify their complaints because their experience is a disjointed mess of bureaucracy. They spend all their intellectual energy fighting the process, not the policy. The system is highly efficient at achieving one goal: preventing the political organization of the poor. It ensures they remain an isolated collection of supplicants, not a unified voting bloc demanding fundamental rights.
So, both the chaos and the limited nature of the aid are by design. It forces dependency while preventing political action. What about the ultimate payoff? Dr. Shaw, is the end goal simply money or something more fundamental?
The payoff is stable power and social control. The money, the tax subsidies, the corporate profits, the bureaucratic budgets is the fuel. But the engine is the guaranteed, predictable submission of a large segment of the population. The Uni-Party is an organism dedicated to its own survival. By controlling the dependency matrix, they secure a permanent lever on the economy and the electorate. They create a society where millions of people must prioritize their next welfare appointment over challenging the corruption of the state. That is control perfected.
Dr. Shaw, let's address the intellectual foundation of this control, pathologizing poverty. The system constantly reinforces the lie that poverty is a result of individual moral failure, poor budgeting, lack of willpower, laziness, rather than a systemic outcome of rigged economics. How does the Uni-Party benefit from this pervasive intellectual deception?
This is the single most important ideological defense, Otto. If poverty is pathologized, the problem becomes apolitical and therapeutic rather than economic and structural. The solution shifts from demanding higher wages and corporate accountability to demanding that the poor attend mandatory budgeting classes and drug screenings. This serves a vital purpose for the Uni-Party. It exonerates the financial elite who are truly driving wealth inequality.
Of course,
It tells the public the system is fair, the poor are flawed. This moral framing justifies the intrusive surveillance and the erosion of dignity that Kai described. The poor must be treated like wayward children who need strict supervision and behavioral correction, while the powerful are excused their predatory behavior. The Uni-Party is masterful at hiding systemic failure behind individual shame. They are treating a deep structural wound with a moral band-aid.
Kai, when you were enforcing these rules, mandating job training or parenting classes, did you feel like you were genuinely helping people? Or did you feel like you were acting as a moral police force for the state?
It was a constant internal conflict. We were given behavioral tools, referrals for counseling, mandatory workshops, because those are the cheapest, easiest solutions to fund and measure. We were denied the structural tools, rent assistance that matched market rates, education grants that didn't disappear instantly, or the ability to demand a higher minimum wage. The system required me to deliver the message, "Your poverty is your fault, and here is your required course in responsibility." This forces the client to internalize the shame, and I became the enforcer of that shame.
A custodian of the narrative.
I was a custodian of the Uni-Party's narrative of moral failure, required to blame the victim repeatedly in order to keep my own job. The greatest irony is that the social workers, often overworked and underpaid, are also victims of the bureaucratic system, caught between genuine desire to help and the punitive rules they must enforce.
Let's talk about the intergenerational effect again, but specifically on economic ambition. If a child sees that their parent is punished for taking a better job due to the benefit cliff, what lesson about the free market do they truly learn?
They learn that the market is not free. It is managed. They learn that the path to stability is not through entrepreneurial risk or aggressive self improvement, but through careful, low profile compliance with institutional rules. They learn that the rewards for ambition are negated by bureaucratic punishment. This creates a self regulating, low wage labor pool that is perfectly stable for the corporate interests served by the Uni-Party. The child is conditioned to fear economic ascent, understanding that the only true security comes from the state's continued controlled benevolence. The safety net, designed to be a temporary trampoline, is a generational psychological tether.
And the final betrayal is that this entire process is administered under the flag of compassion. It's the ultimate doublespeak.
It is the ultimate weapon, Otto. Compassion is the cover story for coercion. If they simply denied the aid, it would be tyranny. By granting the aid with moral strings attached, and with overwhelming bureaucratic friction, they achieve the same result: control, but retain the moral high ground. The system is designed to break the spirit through administrative warfare, ensuring that the poor, when they finally do escape, are too psychologically damaged or exhausted to become political threats.
We have established that the social safety net is a sophisticated political weapon used by the Uni-Party to manage dependency, atomize dissent, and ensure the perpetuation of a compliant voter base and a cheap labor market. Now, the crucial question: how is this system defied? The act of the recipient trying to become independent is by definition an act of civil defiance. Kai, what is the most defiant act a recipient can take right now to shatter the Uni-Party's control, short of achieving overnight wealth?
The most defiant act is collective, unified, non-compliant action centered around demanding simplicity. They must stop fighting the individual applications and start fighting the process itself. Their fatigue is a political tool. Their organization is the counter-weapon. They must demand unconditional cash transfers with high, non-punitive exit ramps. They must expose the benefit cliff as a deliberate act of hostility. They must reject the shame and organize their communities, stating clearly, "Our poverty is a failure of your economic policy, not our morality." This strips the Uni-Party of its moral cover and its most effective tool: fragmentation. They must unify around the demand for human dignity over bureaucratic control.
Dr. Shaw, if the poor successfully demand a simplified, unconditional system, what is the Uni-Party's greatest fear? What catastrophic event, from their perspective, would immediately follow?
Their greatest fear is the immediate collapse of political predictability. If millions of people are freed from the daily grind of bureaucratic survival, they gain the time, energy, and moral clarity to engage in genuine, unpredictable political action. The massive guaranteed voting bloc dissolves.
The end of predictability.
The low-wage labor pool becomes volatile, demanding higher wages and better conditions, thus threatening corporate profit margins. The entire apparatus of bureaucratic control, the millions of jobs and contracts, is rendered obsolete. The Uni-Party would face a sudden, massive challenge to its power structure, not from the rich or the middle class, but from the very demographic they thought they had securely contained through calculated benevolence. It would be a liberation of political energy they cannot control.
So the solution isn't to abolish the aid, but to sanitize the aid, to demand that the aid be delivered as a right, not as a moral transaction that guarantees subservience. You are asking the political class to commit slow suicide by dismantling their own mechanisms of control. That is the definition of civil defiance.
We are asking them to choose between genuine compassion and calculated power. The Defiance is enforcing that choice into the public light.
The Defiant Act is to expose the political self-interest of the system that forged the chains. The compliance of the poor is the Uni-Party's most precious asset. To dismantle the coercion is to dismantle their power.
Dr. Shaw, Kai, thank you for challenging the pieties and exposing the political reality of the dependency trap. You have successfully argued that the chains of compassion are the most effective tool for maintaining the power structure. To our listeners, be skeptical of easy solutions. Question the motives behind every act of benevolence that comes from the state. Your defiance begins with recognizing the cage.